what a world we have. In one hand, we have lots of social movements around the world opposing their own governments, opposing and fighting against imperialism, neoliberalism, colonialism, reactionary governments, reactionary sectarian governments, especially in Middle East. On the other hand, we are facing another war today. This is very shameful for governments who are going to war without having any support from their people. There is no support for war whatsoever. There is no justification for war whatsoever. Mr. Obama is taking war to another war with no legal basis. When I'm talking about legal basis, I mean, if United States wants to go to war, it should go through two laws, basically. One is international law, and the other one is national law. According to international law, countries cannot go to other country unless they are facing a war or attack, and it is a matter of self-defense. What we are facing in Syria and the United States regarding this war, there is no self-defense for United States. This is wrong when the United States is deciding to go to this war. And second law is the law that that if United Nations, supports, war, let's say, Mr. Obama doesn't have these two legal bases, first of all. Secondly, national law says that Mr. Obama should get Congress's approval, and he doesn't have this approval as well. So I'm not saying if he gets the approval from all these laws, he should go to war. No, there is no justification for war, as I said before. But I'm just talking the way that they are trying to convince the world that this is a legal war. That's why I'm talking about legal basis. The argument that they put on table is about the chemical weapon. This is another justification for taking the war to another war, because the country that is talking about chemical weapon has a history of attacking other nations by chemical weapon, like what they did in Vietnam, what they did in Iraq, what they did in Yemen, in Somalia, in Afghanistan, in lots of, if you check the history of United States imperialism, you see lots of war and occupations, lots of chemical weapons, lots of atomic bomb throwing on people who have no benefits of war. That's why this justification is wrong. No people around the world will buy this kind of justification when they are looking on the history of United States. Mr. Obama is talking about Syrian government. I personally am not in favor of Assad regime, personally. But we are talking about a justification here. Just because United States doesn't like a government of any country, they get the right to go attack those countries. Just because people in some countries do not like their government, they are not in favor of their government, and there is a civil conflict within the country. Is this allowing other countries to go and put their nose on those countries and bomb people who have no benefit of none of those sects, none of those people who are involved in the war?
No. It's the civilian population that is suffering at the hands of the Assad government directly and absolutely.
So basically, this kind of justification is double jeopardizing people's life. Basically, this kind of justification is killing people no matter what. If those people are being killed by Assad or sectarian groups within the Syria, United States is deciding to take them and kill them again. Basically, the war is not the solution to what is happening in Syria.
Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria!
This kind of war basically is going to escalate the situation in the Middle East. It's going to create more wars because we know that other countries are involved and have interest in this kind of proxy wars. We know that now the Russian, China, Iran, they are talking about that they are going to go to defend Syria. We know that United States has its allies. We know that United States has military pact with European. If we know that Israel is going to defend United States on this war because of the conflict that they have with Syria. We know that when Israel is involved in that war as well, we know that all Europe that have pact with United States, they might go defend Israel because they clearly said that this pact is to defend Israel. Basically, we are facing a bigger war when this war starts. Basically, world is going to get involved in kind of war that is going to fuel maybe another world war. We don't know, but it's gonna make worse the situation in Middle East, definitely. Was forced to abandon plans for Britain to participate in military attack on Syria. This is forced because British people came out and directly and clearly said that they do not want to go to war. If David Cameron is forced to take this position for now, we can force Canadian government not to go to war as well. If we get together and plan lots of protest actions, if we talk to our MPs, if we talk in our work, if we talk in anywhere, any place that we go and try to say that is this wrong, this is a war that is wrong, and we don't want another war because we still have our bloody hand. Canadian government still has its bloody hand in Afghanistan. We don't want this another war. Canadian troops should be out of Afghanistan right away, and no another military attack from Canada to Syria, no to Iran war, no to another war, no to imperialism war, no to colonialism war, no to taking another countries just because their governments are unpopular to their own people. No attack on Syria.
No attack on Syria.
No attack on Syria.
No attack on Syria.
End the war now.
End the war now.
End the war now.
End the war now.
Thank you.
No attack on Syria.
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 Hey, we have a little bit to be hopeful for about the power of people because of what they did in the UK. And just today, in the United States, President Obama was forced, I would say, by the different pressures he's under to say that he will go to the US Congress to seek approval for striking Syria on September 9th. So it's possible this attack has been delayed already by the power of the people and the isolation of the warmongers. Very isolated, and David Cameron's, he'll be watching his back in the UK. The last time a British Prime Minister went to Parliament to try to get them to support a war and lost the vote was in 1752, I think, the 1700s, and the Prime Minister resigned the next day. So we may soon be saying goodbye to David Cameron, which would be a big win for our side. Looking a little more of a long-term challenge to get rid of Harper, but and the other warmongers in Canada, but we'll work on that too. And I should have mentioned off the top, there have been some other international solidarity, not just anti-war movements, governments, progressive governments in Latin America, like Bolivia, Ecuador, Venezuela, have said no to war. They don't want any part of it, and we should look at those governments as one that tend to spend more money on the needs of their people and less money on invading and occupying other countries. Ecuador with Syria. 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 All right, we'll have some more Latin American chants as we go here. Solidarity. Our next speaker is someone also in the Stop War Coalition who has worked a lot on Haiti solidarity here in BC. The coup in Haiti in 2004 was something backed by the Canadian government, and Harper has continued a very negative role for the sovereignty and justice for the people of Haiti. So I'm going to welcome up now Roger Annis to speak. Please give Roger a welcome. Thank you.
What a difference 3 days makes. When we met 3 days ago in Stop War to plan together with others who have helped us organize this day, to plan this day of protest, join the International Day of Protest, everything looked pretty dark. It looked like we were within hours or maybe days of the massive strike on Syria that the US and its allies were talking about. That was only 3 days ago. How much things have changed since then? This terrific vote in the British Parliament, which of course really is just a reflection of all that's gone on in Britain in the last 10 years, the massive collective rethink that the British people have done of the lies that they were told as justifications for the attack on Iraq in 2003. We've seen the hesitations of the Obama administration grow as the allies that they hope to have for this attack on Syria fall away one by one. In Europe, he's left with the government in France, which is not a government on a particularly stable founding. France is going through a very difficult economic crisis right now. It's just been through a war in Mali in which a growing number of French people are asking, well, what's it all about? What's changed in Mali? This is a desperately poor country. Have we done anything as France to try and bring up the people of Mali from the desperate poverty that they're living under? And we've seen a nervous prime minister in this country. Yes, they're talking about supporting the U.S. and so on. We expected that from the Conservative government, but support them with what? If I was sitting in the White House right now and I was President of the United States and looking at the pronouncements from the Canadian government, I'd say, gee, thanks for the words. We're going to need a little bit more than that if we're going to carry this through. But the Canadian government is not jumping into this with its fighter jets. So what's happening here? Well, for the last 10 years, we've been mobilizing and organizing against war. Call it 12 years even, since the year 2001. And an awful lot of times we ask ourselves, what is this for? We can't get the hundreds of thousands of people in the streets of Vancouver. We've had some big rallies for sure, especially when the war in Iraq was threatened in 2003. But the hundreds of thousands of people that have come out in Britain from time to time, and other big numbers, we just didn't seem to get it. But we weren't giving ourselves enough credit. All of you out there not giving yourselves enough credit for the neighbors that you've talked to, for the letters that you've written to editors of newspapers, for the letters you've written to members of parliament, for the resolutions that you've passed in your trade union locals. Everything we've done over the past 10 years to try and educate ourselves, our friends and neighbors, our colleagues at work, whoever it may be, it's paying off today, because today the war makers they have to hesitate. They don't have the blind support that they thought they had in 2003. We're a thinking people, and we don't accept war, and we above all don't accept their lies. So we have built an anti-war movement, and we built a movement that today, and especially in Britain, but even here in Canada, we've been able to act on at this crucial moment and stay the hand of the war makers. For how long? Maybe some days, maybe some weeks. But even the war makers, what are they saying? They're saying, well, we'll have these limited strikes on Syria. No more mass invasion of countries. Sorry, those days are gone, at least for now. And that's another achievement that we made. Now, one thing we should learn from these last 10 years, my goodness, they lie. When Obama, when Harper, when Cameron spins us a story of what they say is going on in Syria and what must be done, our first reaction must always be, they are lying. Let them prove that they're not lying. And that's very important today in Syria, because what are we being sold today? We don't know. The UN inspectors haven't produced their report. We haven't had enough other independent reports of who was responsible for the horrific attack in Syria. Well, the US government says, it doesn't matter, trust us. Literally, they say, it doesn't matter, trust us. We're not going to tell you what the facts are. You don't need to know. We'll just tell you what we're going to do, and we want you to line up behind us in support. I'm sorry, those days are over. So they lie. They're also against the truth. They don't want the UN inspectors to finish their job. They rushed them out of there. And they said, well, we don't even care what they found out or what they're going to report. We're going to go ahead with our attack. Thankfully, we were able to stop them. So they lie. They're against the truth. They lied to us in Afghanistan. They said, we're going to go to war in Afghanistan to liberate the people of Afghanistan. Well, we know that's a lie. If we didn't know it already, it's been proven to be so. They lied in Haiti in 2004. They said we have a responsibility to protect doctrine here. We're going to go in and overthrow the elected government of Haiti and improve matters in Haiti. Well, you saw on the television in the days following the earthquake in 2010, where were the improvements that were brought into Haiti for 6 years after the 2004 coup? They lie. There was no intention to improve anything in Haiti. It's all about keeping the people of the third world as sources of cheap labor, keep their countries as sources of cheap resources, and above all, strip away the political autonomy of the countries of the third world. That's the politics of big power domination today. That's what was played out in Haiti. That's what they're trying to play out today in the Middle East. There is a war going on in Syria. There are enormous humanitarian stakes involved. We all have our views on that. Mine happen to stand squarely on the side of social justice for the people of Syria. But on this issue of the threat of war against Syria, we can be united regardless of what we think of who is responsible for the conditions in Syria, because we know that regardless of internal conditions in Syria, an attack by the US, by its allies in Canada and Europe, will do nothing to advance the conditions of the Syrian people, will only make them worse. So that's a given. And if we start with that, then we can proceed to figure out, well, how can we join the struggle in Syria for a political solution? There is no military solution to this conflict. And the right-wing regimes in the Middle East that are pouring weapons into Syria, that's got to stop. The Syrian government has to be pressured to a political dialogue. The Syrian opposition has to be encouraged to a political dialogue. There is no military solution to the conflict in Syria. Now, the stakes in Syria go way beyond Syria. What's at stake today is the continued future and progress of what was called the Arab Spring, the tremendous opening towards democracy that began in Tunisia a little more than 2 years ago. We've suffered a terrible setback to this process in Egypt 2 months ago with the overthrow of the elected government in Egypt and the installation of a ruthless and bloody military dictatorship in Egypt today. Now, I'm happy to report that another piece of good news that we can put in today's event is that yesterday in Egypt were significantly large protests against the coup, against the violence of the military regime that go way beyond the political party that was the primary victim of the coup. That is, the Egyptian people are slowly finding ways to overcome the differences that divide them, and they are profound differences, political differences on the future of the country, but there is a growing awareness that the number one problem that the people of Egypt face today is this slide back away from democracy and the installation of a military dictatorship. So that's promising news from Egypt, and we only hope that in the days and weeks to come we'll see more unity coming together against the political violence in Egypt. We'll see more political dialogue, because a profound political dialogue is required in Egypt to think through what's happened over the past couple of years. Who made mistakes? How can we correct them? How can we find a way to move forward as a country and a people? So whether it's Tunisia, or whether it's the people in Palestine, in Gaza in particular, that are suffering deeply because of this coup in Egypt, the border crossings between Egypt and Gaza are being restricted. They all have a stake in stopping this war in Syria, in getting the Egyptian people back on the path of democracy and social justice. And that's our stake too, because we got a lot of the same problems in this country. In any event, we live in a world in which the national boundaries are a reality we have to deal with, but in which we have common interests as a people for a world without war and for a world of social justice. So let's mobilize in the days and weeks ahead so we can stop this war in Syria, and we can join the people of the Middle East in building a democratic and prosperous future.
Thank you. No attack on Syria!
No attack on Syria!
Hands off 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 Syria!
Thank you. And as mentioned, and for people just walking by, having a seat there, taking a break from the sun, please stay and listen. We have a number of informative speakers still to come. This is a rally, part of a global day of action, part of a day with over 12 protests taking place in cities and towns across Canada. All of us united around the world to say no attack on Syria, no to this latest US aggression in the Middle East. And I was talking earlier about some of the countries in Latin America that have given solidarity to the peoples of Syria. We have a statement from a speaker from Venezuela, Jesus. We'll be reading a statement from the ALBA Alliance. ALBA is a very important alliance of countries and peoples of Latin America united against imperialism. So Jesus, here he is.
Hello everyone. First of all, thank you very much all for coming here to express your support with Syrian people. Imperialist intervention, not only in the Middle East, but in the world as a whole. I am here today in order to read a small statement that was issued by ALBA Movimiento. ALBA Movimiento is a continental alliance of grassroots social movements with wide reach throughout the Americas. The Hugo Chavez People's Defense Front, to which I belong, which is a solidarity network with Venezuela, is part of ALBA Movimiento, and as such we sign into the statement that we're about to read. Against the attack on the Syrian people, no more deaths and lives. International groups, social movements and organizations from different areas strongly condemn the imperialist maneuvers of the United States government and its economic interests. Once again are making preparations to invade a country with the excuse of wanting to promote peace. We, however, know, as we have learned from history, that US invasions only generate more deaths and misery for the people who suffer their attacks, as in the case of Vietnam, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Iraq, and many other countries that have had to endure US intervention. The New York Times editorial... Woo! That's it. That's the spirit. The New York Times editorial of August 27 notes that there is little doubt now that President Obama is planning some sort of military response in Syria. The monarchy's daily El País in Spain also highlights a topic on its cover today, that is August 27. Large hegemonic media is setting the stage to legitimize this intervention, which, as we all know, lurks geopolitical control purposes over an area of the world that is strategic to imperialist interest. The use of chemical weapons must be condemned in any part of the world. However, in this case, there is no clear information on who is using them. Also, what transnational company partake in the production of them. Nor is it clear who has been selling these weapons. We, the people of Latin America, will remain alert and strongly condemn the actions of the United States, as the people of Cuba are already condemning. The United States global police state, now commanded by a Nobel Peace Prize winner, has violated all relevant UN bodies with the complicity of white imperial European countries, such as France and the United Kingdom. It imposes peace in the world by the force of arms. It is the peace of cemeteries. Regardless of the position towards the government of Syria, the defense of the autonomy of our Syrian brothers and sisters must be the main and common flag of our social movements worldwide. For a true global peace with social justice, independence and sovereignty of the peoples of the world, we must announce by all means this serious situation. America's August 27, 2013. No intervention in Syria. No intervention in Syria. No intervention in Syria. No intervention in Syria. Thank you, everyone, and once again, thank you for coming.
Excellent deputy who has a Syrian background, and he has a permit to go to Syria and defend his people and defend his territory. So we just want to send our hopes to him and best wishes to him. No war with Syria.
No war with Syria.
Viva Venezuela. Viva América. Viva el mundo. Viva la paz. No a la guerra.
Jamás será vencido. Pueblo unido. Jamás será vencido. The people united will never be defeated. For our friends here, the people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated. The peoples united will never be defeated. Peoples united will never be defeated.
The people who are not here. Canada has apartheid system. Canada was formed on war and conquest. So if you see the war today, it is not a new thing. United States as super imperialist power has 7,007 military bases in 130 countries in order to bring peace and bread to the people. United States says, I don't care about United Nations. I don't care about the fact. We know the fact. We are the custodian of the fact. We are the custodian of power. So in that way, United States has challenged the whole world. They want to accept us slavery. In our organization, in which progressive Indians, progressive Pakistanis, people from Asia are very active. Friends, this is the beginning of the war. It is the war which US want to continue it because economic resources, they need it. Economic problem, they have it. Therefore, the problem is not Syria or so-called chemical warfare. They know, they produce, they manufacture. The problem is that the solution to the economic crisis is fascism. When you look at it, it is 1930s when we had problem of economic. We had a wonderful, glorious war in Europe, and we managed to kill only about 70 million people. So therefore, war has become the way, a religion, a system, and I am so pleased to tell you, I don't want to give a lot of information because you are well informed, but we will fight that Canada should be out of NATO. Canada has no business to be in NATO. We are the people. We would demonstrate, we would demand, and we would get it. Canada has no reason to be in the NATO. It has to be a peaceful country. It was respected in United Nations. So friends, it is the first gathering of many gatherings, and I can assure you, we would win. We will win. We will win. And we are united. And no attack on Syria. No attack on Syria. No attack on Syria. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nazir. It's true. Anti-war activism keeps us young and keeps us full of energy and solidarity. Let's hear it again for Nazir from the Fraser Valley Peace Council. Speaking of warmongers and war criminals, does anyone remember Dick Cheney? Heard of him? 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago now, Dick Cheney came for a fancy book launch at the Vancouver Club, where all the rich, snobby folks of Vancouver like to get together and listen to their friends from around the world. Dick Cheney came, and we in the Stop War Coalition and many friends and allies, we called a protest, and we had a pretty raucous few hundred people surrounding the Vancouver Club a couple years ago, and we kept up that protest for hours. Dick Cheney did come to Canada. Canada, you might know, for many people like George Bush, Cheney, and the other war criminals from that U.S. administration, Canada under Harper is pretty much the only safe place they can travel. A number of countries in Europe have said they might be subject to arrest for war crimes if they go there, but Harper has kind of an open door policy. Anyway, I'm bringing up Dick Cheney because our next speaker, Gail Davidson, and you are still here, right, Gail? Gail is still here, I hear her. Gail Davidson was the person in Canada who put in the most effort. She's a lawyer, part of Lawyers Against War, who made very, very strong and undeniable legal arguments for Canada denying entry to Cheney, and for the fact that if he was let in, the Harper government should have arrested him. So let's hear it for Gail Davidson for her work in opposing war criminals like Dick Cheney. But now, there's a good part of the story, because the Harper government didn't arrest Cheney. They didn't listen to this lawyer here from Vancouver, Gail. But Dick Cheney, who, you know, is not in the best health after so many war crimes in so many years, after being inside there with seeing the protesters outside for hours, he had another event scheduled in Toronto later that year. And his people said, "It's not safe for you to go to Canada anymore. Those protesters are too fierce. You gotta stay out of Canada." So Gail has done her part to keep Dick Cheney away from all of us. Please welcome Gail Davidson. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And just to take up on that note and on what Nazim said, wherever you are, Nazim ended his talk by saying, we can win. Collectively, we can't. Individually, we can't do anything, but collectively, we can win. And just to follow up on the Dick Cheney thing, just after Dick Cheney was here, George Bush came to Surrey. Mayor Watts said it was a matter of freedom of expression that they allow the people of the hobnob people, wealthy people coming to Surrey to listen to George Bush. Lawyers' Rights Watch Canada, Lawyers Against the War, and a Vancouver group called the Centre for International Justice, we all took various actions, and then we filed a report with the Committee Against Torture in Geneva, outlining that the law required what we told Canada year after year after year. We told the police year after year after year. We'd said, because Canada's a party to the Convention Against Torture, if a person reasonably suspected of torture, a foreign national crosses the border into Canada, Canada is obliged to arrest that person and then make sure that they're either prosecuted for torture in Canada or extradited to another country for prosecution. So we said they were obliged, once they let George Bush in, to arrest him. And guess what? The Committee of Torture agreed with us and filed their report that's there on the Committee of Torture website for everybody to see. So we're pretty sure George Bush will never be back in Canada. I just have a short message for you on Syria. Military intervention, U.S. or otherwise, without the authorization of the UN Security Council would be not just an international crime, but what has been since the Nuremberg Convention, the worst crime of all crimes, a crime of a war of aggression. Not only is it a crime to do that, but in my view, it is a crime to counsel such action. Now, while our Prime Minister is saying Canada doesn't want to participate at this time militarily in an attack on Syria, he and other ministers of the Harper government are saying they support military intervention by the U.S., which in my view is itself a criminal offense, to be counseling the commission of a criminal offense. Now, I spoke to a young man in the audience a while ago today who was telling me that there was a duty to intervene. he said a duty to intervene militarily. When you find out there's human rights abuses taking place in another country, then if the U.S. finds out about it, there's a duty on the U.S. to intervene in that country where human rights abuses are alleged to be taking place. Now, I hope that everybody here knows that that is absolute and utter and terrifying and terrible nonsense. Of course, that is not true. To military there is in fact an international law prohibiting military intervention. Of course, and what our responsibility is in this situation is our responsibility is to individually and collectively find ways to intervene to stop military intervention in Syria. And if we don't, then we bear responsibility for the consequences, because the U.S. led an intervention in this is just recent ones, in Kosovo, in Iraq, in Libya, in Afghanistan, and what has happened in those countries has not been the saving of people, the saving of cultures, the saving of resources, the saving of economies. It's been the destruction of everything. And Syria is just the next country on the planned route of destruction, probably on the way to Iran. So it's the responsibility of each and every one of us to educate the people who have, to make our voices loud and to help educate other people with voices. So to go and visit, don't just write to your member of parliament, don't just write to your member of the Legislative Assembly. I know they're provincial, get them engaged also, but go and visit them and outline the law to them. And if you want to know, if you want some pointers on what the law is, you can email me at www.lawyersagainstthewar.org. Just look up Gail Davidson on the internet and you'll find me. I'd be very happy to help you. So thank you for being here today. We're faced with very grave consequences for the people of Syria if we don't act to stop an intervention. Thank you.
Gail Davidson, keeping Cheney and George Bush out of Canada. And working to stop our own war criminals here who unfortunately are still in power. Our next speaker is Charlotte Cates, a Palestine Solidarity activist, long-standing here in Vancouver. Please welcome Charlotte.
It's wonderful to see so many people standing out here today. Here on unceded and occupied Coast Salish territories that was stolen from the indigenous people of this land, to say that we will not stand for Canadian and US and European intervention and yet another war of destruction on any indigenous land, on Syrian Arab indigenous land in this case, or anywhere else around the world. That we stand and we think of the people of Syria who have suffered a great human tragedy in a horrendous civil war for over 2 years now. Does anyone imagine that US bombing, that Canadian support could do anything other than create more and deeper, vast misery in the lives of the Syrian people? Does anyone believe that the goal of Barack Obama and Stephen Harper and James Cameron, thwarted by the British Parliament, but James Cameron nonetheless, is to do anything but weaken the people of Syria, but weaken the people of the region, to divide them, to encourage sectarianism, division, and separation, and war, in order to gain control over resources, in order to exercise their hegemony over the region and the world? There can be no doubt that Stephen Harper is not motivated by human compassion, and that Barack Obama, as he sends his drones to kill families and children in Afghanistan and Pakistan and Yemen, is not motivated by his concern for human rights, as he plans to send cruise missiles and bomb the sovereign territory of Syria. It is not motivated by concern for human rights. It is not motivated by compassion. It's motivated by imperialism. And we are here today to say no. When we Palestine. We look at the past 66 years of occupation and genocide against the Palestinian people. Who do we see lined up in support time and time again? The United States. We see John Baird and Stephen Harper going around the world to proclaim their deep support and fidelity for Israel as it builds settlements on occupied Palestinian land. To proclaim their support for Israel as it imprisons over 5,000 Palestinian political prisoners. To proclaim their support for Israel as 5 million Palestinian refugees around the world are prohibited from returning to their homes and they claim that they care about human rights. They care that they're motivated by concerns for Arab dignity and human rights and liberation. We see who they are in Palestine, and we see who they are in Syria. And we know that it's our responsibility in this country, on this land, to say that our governments and our tax dollars and our resources will not be used to rain down death and destruction on the people of Syria. And that our governments and our tax dollars and our resources, and frankly the resources of the indigenous people of this land that have been stolen from them, will not be used to rain down death and destruction on the people of Palestine, on Syria, on Iran, and anywhere else in the world that Obama and Harper are threatening their bloody wars of destruction. This is not humanitarian intervention. There's no such thing. There is no such thing as a humanitarian intervention on the part of the United States, Canada, and Europe in Syria. The only intervention we've seen for the past hundreds of years by these countries in this land has been that of colonialism, has been that of division, has been that of war and oppression, has been that of encouraging sectarianism instead of unity. Because the reality is that the unity of the people of Palestine, of Syria, of the Arab world, of people of the region, of people around the world has always meant the lessening of the power of those who seek to reap the profits of the richness of the land and its resources and its people. And so today, it's our responsibility to say that these governments cannot do this. It's our responsibility because they're doing it in our name. And if we're silent, we're complicit and we're letting it happen. And here we have to take a stand and say that we will not let that happen. That just like Dick Cheney 2 years ago, they will not pass. And we will not stand by silently, and we will not be ineffective as the cruise missiles and the bombs and the destruction rain on Syria. And instead, we stand with the Syrian people, and we stand with the Syrian families, and the Syrian mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and children. And we stand with the people of Syria and say no, no to your cruise missiles, to your war, to your sanctions, to your intervention. No war on Syria! No war on Syria! No war on Syria! No war on Syria!
No war on Syria!
Syria!
No war on Syria!
No war on Syria!
No war on Syria!
Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria!
Thank you, everybody. We have a bunch of requests to walk around and take our message to some other people.
Oh yeah, I'm getting a little snippet of their stand here.
Well, there's a bunch of food trucks all around here. This one's neat. You can see. Just wait for the light up here.
Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria! US out! Canada out! 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 Syria! Hands off 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 Syria!
Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! How's it going?
Right, Hooker.
Good to see you. Hands off Syria! 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 Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria!
Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria!
Hands off
Syria! Hands off Syria!
Hands
Off Syria! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria!
Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria!
Syria! No more in Syria! Syria. No more in 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 Syria. Syria. No more in Syria. No more in Syria. Syria. No more on Syria. No more on Syria. More on Syria. No more on Syria. No more on Syria. Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria.
No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in
Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. No war in Syria. Syria. No war on 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 Syria. Syria. No war on 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 Syria.
Official representation of the U.S. government. We've been here many times in the last dozen years and decades before that. As someone once said, I think it was a governor from Texas who went on to do other things. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Or something like that. You know. No, he botched it as well. What we're saying is this government president now who can get the sayings right and read the teleprompters very well and is very handsome, very eloquent. It's no less of an illegal war machine. It's no less of an empire under the thumb. To the art gallery, I wanted to welcome up Ferris from the Syrian community here in Vancouver.
Thank you everyone for being here. With you, we're gonna stop the war. We're gonna tell this guy who's sitting there, if your bomb is gonna give him a peace, we're gonna sit here and live here and you stop this war. I'm proud to be Syrian. I want to let the Canadian government, I will not let Canada support any war against Syria. Because we're Canadian. I'm telling you guys, I'm from Syria. We suffered a lot. And we have our neighbor in Iraq. We have some story. We asked him, did you enjoy American bombing? Of course they didn't enjoy it. They got killed, they got suffered, women, children. The bomb doesn't recognize who you are. They're gonna bomb the building. They said they're gonna bomb only the government. At night, who the hell knows who lives in that building? They're gonna stop the war. Enough war. We're gonna tell that foolish guy who's sitting in the White House, wake up, guy! Wake up! Stop dreaming of killing people! And again, I'm proud to be a Syrian Canadian guy.
Because of all the political pressure around the world, Obama has given us a little more time to protest. Probably. They say they're going to vote in Congress on September 9th. Everyone has to keep the pressure up. If they try to sneak one in or they launch the bombing at any time between now and then, people are asking for emergency demonstrations on the day of the attacks. So we're going to have rallies at 6 p.m. on the day of the bombing. If it does happen, emergency rallies at the Vancouver Art Gallery. But there's still time to organize, still time to protest. I think we're going to have one more speaker here, Charles Boylan, radio host of at Co-op Radio and for the CPCML, has asked to say a few words. And then we'll all go back together nice and loud again like we did before to the Art Gallery. So thank you. Here's Charles.
First of all, I think it should be reiterated what the sisters spoke in support of the Palestinian and the movement here, that this is indigenous, unceded territory. And as she drew the links, we should always remind ourselves that the future of British Columbians, the future of Canadians, needs to be built on an anti-colonial, anti-racist, modern basis that defends the rights of every human being. Part of defending the rights of human beings in Canada means also to defend the rights of our brothers and sisters around the world. We are one humanity. Just a couple of words about the arguments that are used against humanity and for war. One of the arguments that is used continuously is the argument actually introduced into the United Nations by Mr. Axworthy, who was the former Foreign Minister of Canada. And he introduced a conception that violates the entire world historical experience of the anti-fascist war that ended with the foundation of the United Nations. And that fundamental law, established like Gail Davidson said, is a crime, the greatest crime internationally, is a crime against the peace. But Axworthy slipped into the United Nations a phrase called duty to protect. Because, you know, when an imperialist gangster wants to break into somebody's house and rape and ruin and rob, they have to justify it with humanitarian sounding phrases. And that's what the United States, that's what Britain, that's what Canada and NATO have been doing now since the collapse of the bipolar division of the world. They have been invading one country after another, violating the sovereign rights of one country after another in the name of democracy, in the name of human rights, in the name of duty to protect. Brothers and sisters, we stand here to defend the Charter of the United States, or the United Nations, sorry, the Charter of the United Nations, which says that war is a scourge on humanity. We say that every state, large and small, has the right to self-determination and protection. I also want to add a couple of words about a very peculiar sequence of events. On Wednesday, August the 14th, a fascist coup d'etat organized by a general trained in the United States of America, whose army is financed to $1 billion a year in the United States of America, slaughtered hundreds, maybe thousands of Egyptian patriots marching for democracy that they had waged a revolution for 2 years ago. 1 week exactly to the day, on August the 21st, suddenly there is a gas attack in Syria, and suddenly the whole focus is away from what is happening in Egypt onto what is happening in Syria to justify an aggressive, illegal, criminal, racist war against the people of the Middle East. I just want to say this caution, because, you know, Obama has got a very little room to maneuver. He's got a Secretary of State who has boxed him into a corner saying, if the United States doesn't hit Syria, this will be a disgrace to the United States. The United States will lose face around what's Obama going to do. So now, got to hit Syria. But Obama has said, oh, we're not going to put boots on the ground. We're just going to do a little hit on Syria. Okay, if I am the head of the Syrian state, I say, okay, U.S. going to give a little hit on us, we're going to give a little hit right back. That's the danger. Because if Syria were to defend its sovereignty, which legally, that is the only legal reason to launch a warlike effort to defend yourself, then where the hell will humanity go from there? Because the day that Syria strikes back at the United States of America, which would be their legal, moral, ethical right to defend their nation, then the United States is going to wage blood vengeance war on the people of Syria. That is a great danger. And then what will Iran do? Then what will Russia do? So, ladies, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, friends, we have to, as other speakers have said, we live in very dangerous times. That's why my party puts a slogan, I don't know what's up there. It says, for an anti-war government in Canada, there is only one foreign policy for every state on this planet, and that is an anti-war policy.